I'm Callie Fell, the Executive Director for the Center for Bioethics and Culture, also the host of the podcast Venus Rising. Today, I bring to you Mandy. Mandy is a surrogate mother and a woman who has come forward to share her experience as a surrogate mother. So, without further ado, Mandy, thank you so much for contacting us, emailing us, and coming online to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. So I understand that you were a surrogate mother several years ago. Let's talk about your motivations for becoming a surrogate mother, your intentions, and just kind of the process.
Sure. So I wanted to be a surrogate mom. I felt like I had really easy pregnancies, and I wanted to help a family to be able to have a child that couldn't have one. And also, I come from a very small town, and so finances was pretty difficult. So I thought that would also help me and help someone else at the same time.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from surrogate mothers. This idea that it's a way to make money, but also be able to still be involved with their own families, and then also that their own pregnancies were relatively easy, uncomplicated. So you're not alone. I hear that a lot. So talk to me then, just kind of let's go through the process. Did you go through an agency? How did you match with um, the intended parents?
So I had tried, I did a lot of research and I had tried to go through an agency. The issue with the agency is they said that my BMI was too high, so they wouldn't even let me match. So I went online. There's a forum. I can say it if you want.
No, they'll keep it anonymous.
Okay. So there's a website, and basically you create a profile and you say what you're looking for, where you live, and you can send messages back and forth. So I was messaging a couple of people, and then I had picked this particular person because he kind of let me take control of the situation. I actually ended up doing research and creating my own surrogate contract and then getting it approved by one of my attorney friends. So I looked at everything that needs to go in it. I looked up the laws in my state where the baby would be born, and then the father's state to see where it was better to do the transfer. And so I coordinated like all of those things and saved the parent like 60 plus $1,000 just by not going through an agency itself.
Wow. Do you have education in law or in contract, like where do you have a background in that?
At the time, I was serving court papers, and I had a lot of friends that were in the legal field. Um, I would say I like researching, but I would also say that each state, the laws, there's not a lot of regulations on surrogacy. So to be fair, it wasn't hard to find one and copy one that was similar and then get with a lawyer for a couple $100 to review it,
Wow.
which is a little concerning. I'm sure you also feel that way.
Yeah. So doing your own research, writing up your own contract, foregoing an agency, did you feel like you completely understood what you were signing up for or what you were getting ready to do?
I didn't think about all of the medical procedure and everything really involved. I just thought like I've been pregnant before, it should be a very similar process. So um, I wasn't scared. I'm the kind of person that I think I can basically do anything. Um, but a lot of things I wasn't prepared for was all of the hormones and the shots and all of that stuff. I don't know why I didn't think about my body would need to think it's pregnant before they implanted an embryo.
Hmm. So
Also,
I want to back up for just a second. So you picked an intended parent. It sounds like a man, a single man in partnership, or so you tell me a little bit more about that. Living in a different state than you, is that right?
yes. So originally, when I had found him, I was in Arizona and he was in a different state,
Okay.
different part of the country.
Okay.
And after we had matched, I had decided that I was going to move closer to his side of the country to be near my family for the experience, and he was open to that. So we arranged those kind of things.
Okay. And so it sounds like you chose him because you got along, he agreed with the terms that you created. Did your contract, sometimes I read contracts and they have some really specific things like vegan diet or things like that.
That's
Was
what
there
I'm
any?
hoping to avoid. So I think for me, I'm used to like I had a lot of older brothers. I'm used to that. He kind of let me take charge of that. So I was like talking to other couples and they were like, you must drink this much water every hour, or you can't use this deodorant. And I was like, listen, nobody has time for this. I understand why they do it, but absolutely not. For me, I know I'm not going to agree to something that I can't stick to.
Mhm.
And so I said, like, is there anything you want me to like avoid? And he's like, you've been pregnant before. I trust you, make good decisions. So that's one of the reasons I picked him.
Okay. Did either of
Another,
you undergo any type of like um background check or medical check or on either side?
so he did have a criminal history. He actually, I can't get into too much of a story because I don't want to give him away, but he did have a criminal history and he's someone that overcame it and now is in a position where he helps so many people and he has an organization. And so I thought that was a really good thing. The
Hmm.
other thing was hard for him to find a surrogate because he had something, I can't remember, he had a medical thing that a lot of surrogates would not carry for. I had to sign some kind of medical release to be able to carry the embryo. I can find those records, but
I see. And the embryo that you carried was not genetically related to you, right? He used an egg donor as
correct.
well. Okay.
He let me help pick out the egg donor actually. So the clinic that we picked out was close to where I was, and it was kind of like online dating. He never met the person. There's a picture, a blurb, and then you just pick one and you pay the clinic, and then you get eggs and everything happens. It was a little bit insane.
Yeah.
And it was between two, and he said, okay, well, I like both of these ones. Which one should I pick? And I said, well, this is going to be your child forever. So you pick the one that you want. So he picked the egg donor, and yeah,
Hmm. And this is a commercial transaction. You were also paid for being a surrogate mother, yes?
correct.
Okay. I'm just clearing all that up for our listeners here, that you were a gestational, commercial, surrogate mother. So now you are, how was the transfer? How was your pregnancy? Did it take the first time? Let's now get into the details of the actual surrogate pregnancy.
So the doctor only wanted to transfer one. There was genetic testing done on the embryo, so we could tell if it was male or female. Um, we pressed the doctor to transfer a boy and a girl because he thought that would be kind of a perfect completion, and I was open to that. On the first transfer, only one embryo stuck the first time, and that resulted in the pregnancy and delivery of the baby.
Okay. And so that's so you became pregnant. Did you have so in our research that we did, we interviewed a little over 100, but the study only included 96 women. And we found out that surrogate pregnancies were quite a bit different than pregnancies from their own children, their biological children. So is that your case? Let's talk about your pregnancy. What was your experience like being pregnant with an embryo that wasn't yours?
First, I will say I wasn't prepared for the months leading up to it, where I had to give myself shots twice daily of very thick solution. I had to do pills and patches, be on a very strict regimen to trick my body into thinking I was pregnant. So um, I wasn't really prepared for that, but I signed up for it. So, of course, I took all the medication. The embryo stuck the first time. And at 8 weeks pregnant, I started getting this really bad pain in my back. I was at my brother's house, and he's an EMT, and he said, oh, you probably have a kidney stone. Drink a bunch of cranberry juice. So for 2 days, finally, I could barely move. I drove myself to our teeny tiny hospital, and I'm like, something is super wrong. They didn't want to CAT scan me or give me proper medical attention because I was pregnant, and they didn't like they didn't want a CAT scan with the baby.
Right.
And finally, my chest started hurting. So they took me to CAT scan right away. And before I made it back to my bed, they were hitting me with Lovenox because I had blood clots in both of my lungs.
Oh.
So I called my brother. He came in and he was like furious. He's like, because they were going to send me home. Like I had to push for the CAT scan. They were like, oh, we can send you home and say you have a muscle spasm and give you some medicine. And I kind of had to push to be seen and get a CAT scan. And had I not, I would have probably just died on my brother's couch at like 32 years old.
Wow.
So
How many weeks
uh,
pregnant were you at this point?
8 weeks. 8 weeks. Yeah.
Did they give any indication what they thought caused these clots? Do you have family history of bleeding disorders or clotting disorders?
No, I had to go through a battery of testing, genetic, blood test, all kinds of stuff, just like the agency does. The doctor orders it as well. So once, when I was in the hospital for this, um, one of the nurses, they begged me not to take any more hormones. They said the hormones that you took for the surrogate pregnancy, if you take any more, it will kill you. It might kill you, but these hormones, you have to stop. And so the doctor from the surrogate or from the IVF clinic, he called because I told the dad what was going on. I was keeping him informed. And he called and he said, you have to take him or that baby's going to die. And I said, well, if I stop, if I don't, one of us is going to die, basically. And I'm like, I don't want to kill someone else's child by not taking this medicine, but also I have kids that I have to like be alive for. So the dad was really nervous, but he didn't put pressure on me. He said, whatever you choose to do, like, I support it. I told him, look, if it doesn't work, like, you have more eggs, we can try again. But I said, I really think that my body will make the hormones. So I chose at that point not to take any more. And I believe you're supposed to continue them up until 2 or 3 months of being pregnant. And the baby stuck. I had to be on Lovenox, so blood thinners, so injections in my stomach twice a day for the entire pregnancy. At the end toward delivery, I had to be on heparin. And then afterwards, I saw a hematologist, got a battery of tests. I don't have any complications. I don't have any family history. It was just a result of the hormones from the surrogacy.
Wow. Wow. And was your delivery uncomplicated? Did that all go kind of as you thought it would?
Um, we did an induction, but everything went as normal other than I had to be placed on heparin to make sure some scary stuff. I had to create a living will. I really had to go into this thinking that I might bleed to death during this delivery. So I had to have advanced directives, will, all of these things put in place because they didn't know how the delivery would go with the blood clots.
And how old were your children at this time?
My daughter's my daughter was 11.
11.
And so like I didn't tell her any of this was going on. So I was
Right.
just like, oh, it's a checkup. So later she had asked me about the experience and she's like, oh, he was asking me to do it again for him. And I was super offended by that because I'm like, oh, I almost just died. So you want me to just put my life in danger again? Like, this is, but my daughter was like, oh, mom, would you do it again? And I said, no. And she's like, well, why? What happened? So I had to
Mm.
explain to her, like, I had some really bad medical issues and I couldn't tell you because you would have been just a mess. So
And how did your daughter do with the idea of you having a baby that you would be giving to someone else?
I explained it to her. I asked her permission beforehand. I told her why. I kind of explained like women have eggs and, pretty simple terms for an 11-year-old. And she was like, yeah, but the baby's inside you. So like your blood. And I'm like, yeah, but genetics. So she had some pretty good points, but she's like, yeah, if we're going to help someone, then I think you should do it if you want to. And she was pretty supportive.
Yeah.
Um, she wanted to be there when the baby was born. I told her absolutely not because she's a very like sensitive, sweet kind of kiddo.
Yeah. Yeah. I often wonder about,
The effects.
yeah, on children. I mean, because it's just, I've talked to surrogate mothers whose children have been even younger and, struggle with this idea of, well, is mom going to give me away? Or why is this, it's just a really complex thing for them to think about. We had others where the children said, oh, well, if mom needs to make some money, why don't you become pregnant again? They associated
Right.
the financial incentive to having children, which is just kind of crazy. So I always like to ask that question if and get any insight that I can. So after you had the baby, how was did you have any plans to have contact with the baby throughout her life? Would she know that you were her surrogate mother? How was your relationship with the intended dad at that point? Can you speak to any of that?
Sure. So I would say um, he was pretty open to it. So he said, "Hey, if you think it will help, if you want to come and spend some time at our place."
Oh, I lost you. Let's see. Hang on one second. That's okay. Okay, start over.
So at the time, he basically left it open for me. Like, if you want to come visit, you can, like totally up to you, however you're feeling. Um, and I decided that that would make me too, like, even more attached because finding out, like, I was also told during the time of my embolism that maybe I should have an abortion. And I was like, absolutely not. So it made me a little more protective of the pregnancy. Like, no, we're going to get through this kind of together. So, um, yeah, what happened after the birth, too? So the dad was in the delivery room and they actually let him deliver the baby because he also was in the medical field. So they let him put on gloves and help deliver her.
Mm.
I cried so much because of the induction and all of the emotions because it's such a weird headspace. Like your body feels like you lost a child. You didn't, and mentally you know that you didn't, but your body is like producing milk and hormones and wanting to be near the baby and you can't. So I remember like I gave birth and I watched him do the golden hour and luckily the doctor
Wait,
that
so
I
the
had.
dad did the golden hour?
Yeah, so luckily, like the doctor who delivered was a surrogate before, so she said, "Do you want the baby put on you?" And I said, "I can't. Like, I absolutely cannot have this baby put on me." So the baby went right to the dad, and they were sitting next to me, like doing the golden hour, and like I just was like bawling for like 3 hours, just like crying. And they came back and they tried to show me the baby, and I was like, I can't even touch her. Like, I'm just like mentally not okay. So the next day I like took a shower, I walked down to their room and then
I lost you again. You walked down to the room and
like I held her and I kind of like gave her to the parents. It's kind of like a symbolic thing for me, even though like she was already theirs and already given to him.
hmm
So that was pretty difficult, I would say. And
hmm
then I got discharged before the baby. The whole other part of the story is I was in a small town and I was a high risk pregnancy, so we decided that we would wait out the last couple months of their pregnancy at a campsite. So I stayed in a cabin in the woods myself, near this high risk hospital, and the dad stayed down the road a little bit in his camper so that he could work. So I'm like, oh man, what if I go into labor like by myself, like kind of at this campsite, right? So that's a whole other aspect of it. Um, so I had had the cabin for a little bit longer, and I went back to it and I tried to stay up all night because I wasn't sure when they were getting discharged and I wanted to say goodbye. Like I wanted to physically like say goodbye, send them off to where they were going to. And they didn't let me know when they were leaving and they kind of left like the without telling me they were discharged. And part of me I was like, well, that's not really up to me, but it was super emotional because I tried to stay up so late just to be able to say goodbye.
hmm
And it didn't happen like that, but you know.
Yeah. And now you're not in contact with her at all.
So I did help the dad find his next surrogate. I did write her entire contract. He did have another child from that surrogate. And then I just found through a friend's Facebook, because I'm blocked on everything now. Um,
You're blocked
I just
from
found,
him on everything?
yeah, from his Facebook and stuff like that. So, but I just found he did have his, so he has three daughters now through surrogacy.
All different surrogate mothers?
I'm not sure if the
Not sure.
last one was the same one or a different one, but the last one, the baby came early and had to stay in the NICU for a couple of weeks. She had really high blood pressure, and I don't know if she's still struggling with that or not.
Mm. The mother had really high blood pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like because of their pregnancy and the surrogacy hormones.
Yeah, well, and we see that, yeah, surrogate pregnancies are more likely to have preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure and issues with that, um, than naturally conceived pregnancies. Um, and you had said that the little girl that you gave birth to had to stay in the hospital longer. Was she having complications, or was it just a matter of they were, why would it
No, they
take
just did a
longer?
few more tests and everything.
Oh, okay.
So,
I see. Okay, so why it sounded like you guys had a decent relationship. Um, he obviously paid you. There, it sounds like you went through the whole agreement. But now he's blocked you. Is there, you helped him find another surrogate mother? So what's the dynamic there?
so what happened is, I think maybe a year later, I was having some financial issues, and I reached out and I just asked him if he would mind sending a Christmas present, like for my daughter.
Hmm.
Like, so he basically said some not nice things and that he's not an ATM machine. And then he said that I have unstable relationships. And so originally I just said, okay. And then I wrote back and I was a little bit rude as well. And I let him know, like, okay, when I started this journey with you, you were single. And then at the birth, you had someone different. And now you have a different partner. And it's not just me. So, you
Mm.
know, telling
I
my kiddo
won
about it. So,
I wondered because you said them when you referred to like leaving the baby at the hospital. So
yeah.
he had a partner.
Originally, when we started the surrogacy journey, it was just him. And then he had a partner who came to the delivery.
Mhm.
And then that partner was gone. And then for the next surrogate, he had a different partner that went to that delivery. So I'm not sure the status now. But
Gotcha.
also I like was recently divorced and changing a lot of my, so we kind of got along because we both maybe had some of the same issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Very messy for the children involved though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just processing
You're
all
okay.
of this.
No,
This is
take
a
your
lot of
time.
information. Um, and it doesn't surprise me that you really did. It sounds like you really bonded with this little girl while you were pregnant with her, especially because of this kind of choice you had to make, either her life or your life, and then the fact that the pregnancy stayed viable, and then you had this little girl. It sounds like a lot of
And too, also it was during COVID, so I was living like by myself, pregnant. Um, and then oddly, like the surrogate parent was worried about everything that was going on, so he had me buy a gun. I've never shot or held a gun in my life, but he's like, I don't want you getting dragged out of the car. You're going to this big city for this high risk stuff and the political stuff and the protesting and the COVID
sure.
and all that was happening. And I'm like, it was insane. Like talking about it now, I'm like, that's totally insane.
Yeah. Can I ask, and you can decline to answer, how much were you paid for your contract for your arrangement?
I think that I'll tell you the amount. I think it was a low amount, but it wasn't just about the money. But it was 35K
Okay.
in total for the base price. And then there were extra things like a clothing allowance, if you have multiples, those kind of things.
Sure, sure, sure. And you were paid this probably in increments throughout your pregnancy, is that right?
Yep, after the pregnancy is confirmed, then you start getting your monthly stipends. And then after the baby's born, if the baby's born at a certain week, then you get all of it. Um, there's just like small things like that. Yeah.
Sure. And how's your health now? So this was several years ago. How are you doing now? What's up now?
Um, well, last year in July, I got blood clots in both my lungs again out of the blue. I was in the hospital for a week. They they said once you get blood clots, it's easier to get them.
Mm,
They did the whole battery of tests that they had done before. Everything else is healthy. They would like me to be on Eliquis for life. And so I don't know what's going to happen. It's a very expensive medication. It's impacted my health a lot. I'm not taking it. I can't really afford it.
mm.
I make decent money now, so that's good, but I don't have health insurance where I work. So baby aspirin and prayers, I guess.
Yeah. Did you have health insurance? Did he buy a health insurance plan for you while you were going through the pregnancy?
So that's normally how things are supposed to work. In the state that I was in, I let them know that I was a surrogate. And so I was on government health insurance the entire time, which was lucky because everything was paid for, because I wouldn't have been able to afford the Lovenox for sure. That's like 3 grand a month just to not die during the pregnancy. But I let them know because I didn't want to get in any kind of trouble. So I was like, hey, I'm a surrogate. And they're like, well, it's your body that's pregnant, so we'll cover it. And so he found a girl in the same state to do it the next time because you're not paying a surrogacy agency. I did all of that. You're not even having to pay for healthcare, except for like the IVF clinic, like, the transfer and that stuff, of course. But for the pregnancy, everything is basically
Like
covered,
all your prenatal care was covered by,
the government.
wow. Okay. I get that. That question
He
a
like,
lot,
oh,
how insurance
yeah.
works and all of this. So it's just curious. Yeah.
If we were in a different kind of state like California, they would have had to buy an insurance plan
Sure.
that covered this specifically.
Right. Right. So what's your thoughts on surrogacy now? Now that you've had time to reflect and you've done a lot of work in this. You've written a contract, you've been a surrogate mother, you helped another woman become a surrogate mother. What do you think? Because laws are changing like every day on this. It feels like the states, I'm like battling because our position is that um, it should be illegal because it does harm women and children and exploits them. But what's your thoughts on it? I'd love to know.
Um, I think there's a lot of education that's missing. So, um, when you talk to a surrogate, you're just like, oh, you had healthy pregnancies. Like, okay, you can do it again and you can make some money and it'll help your family. But everyone thinks it won't happen to me. Like, yeah, you signed a bunch of waivers that, these hormones can cause this stuff. Okay, yeah, whatever. I had healthy pregnancies. This isn't going to happen to me. But I can promise you it will happen to you. Out of the other surrogate that I know, really bad, like preeclampsia and high blood pressure. So that's 100% of the people that I know that are surrogates that have had, for me, that's a pretty not good odd.
Well, I just appreciate you coming forward to tell your story. And I think really the part that got to me was the emotional toll that it takes. The fact that you're right, you're going home with full breasts, all these hormones, a full heart, right? Because you're pumped with hormones that make you love and show affection towards your baby, but empty arms, and just the toll that that would take on a mother, a birth mother, and also a child. We really we don't know her thoughts
Right.
on this primal wound that was created. So I just appreciate you for your vulnerability and sharing that because I don't think people understand that aspect.
The after effects, like, listen, the agencies, they'll tell you you're not going to get attached. Listen, there's a baby kicking inside you. Let's just be real. Like, nobody's going to say it like that, but you will be attached. If you have loved your own child, you will be attached. And I cried for 2 months. I did not leave my house. I tried to get counseling, and the lady had never talked to a surrogate, and she just thought like it was the best thing, I deserve a seat in heaven. I'm like, lady, I'm struggling for real.
You're like,
So
I don't really want a seat in heaven right now. Right now, I'm struggling with maybe postpartum depression. I need some help.
yeah, so I had to get on antidepressants for a little while, and but I really couldn't leave the house. And I was pumping. So I was pumping, and I was originally going to mail the milk to the baby. I think it's my way of staying connected and not letting go,
Hmm.
because I just like wasn't fully prepared. Like mentally, I was like, this isn't my baby, I know, but your whole body is telling you, like, hey, where's your baby?
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
and
remember like wanting to swim afterwards. My friend had like a party, and like it was some new friends, so they didn't know, and they're like, how come you're not swimming? And I'm like, I can't. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, I was a surrogate. And they just looked at me like I was awful.
oh,
And I'm like, oh, I have to explain not getting in a pool, like, oh, you're pregnant, or you were pregnant, where's your baby? And they're just like, oh well, you have
yeah.
to get into really deep stuff or it seem, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about it was your way of still staying connected to this child, but we know studies show too that like breast milk is the best nutrition. Don't get me wrong, fed is best. Any
Right.
baby that's fed, that is good, right? Like this is not against those who use formula, but we do know that breast milk and breastfeeding is the most beneficial to both mom and baby. It has some really wonderful benefits and health outcomes, both short term and long term. And so this just reminds me how adult centered this kind of industry is for when you're not able to give that baby breast milk. And I just think about the golden hour being on a strange dad, because the reason why we do the golden hour is not to benefit anyone else. It's to help that bonding. It's to help breast milk production. It's to help thermoregulate the baby, their heart rate, their temperature control, all kinds of benefits. Um, and we just kind of disregard it when it comes to the fertility industry. So I just really appreciate you sharing that. And then to tie all that in, to just really talk about um, this conundrum that can happen when the health risks are so severe that someone might lose their life, whether that be the mother or the child. And we recently spoke to a woman who developed breast cancer, and it was, does she fight this breast cancer with chemotherapy and medications that will harm this child, or does she wait to have the baby and then treat for breast cancer? These types of things happen, and you can't spell it out in a contract. There's no way to legalize this in a way that we are protecting all the parties. It's
Right.
impossible.
I think from the surrogacy standpoint, I think it is the kids that suffer the most, not from being with the surrogate or being without the surrogate, but for me, I was adopted. So, I always wanted to see what my bio parents looked like. And they have a very strict contract with the egg donor that they're never going to meet her, they're never going to find her unless they do some 23andMe genetic and, on a fluke,
Yeah.
they're never going to know like that part of.
Which is becoming more commonplace because I'd argue that this egg donor was probably a young woman, likely maybe a college student, um, who isn't really thinking about the fact that she's giving away her child. In essence, it is her child. It's not a child, it's her child. And I've talked to egg donors that they get curious later. They throw up, they do some ancestry, they do 23andMe, and they find a match. And so it's not outside the realm of possibility. And there really is no such thing as anonymous sperm or egg donation these days because we have these technologies. And hopefully we can create laws that completely get rid of the idea of anonymity anyway. But yeah, um,
I also want to mention too, like, you feel like you're doing a good thing and you are, and you hope maybe for some kind of connection. I think a lot of people that do surrogacy had some kind of trauma in their life that would make them be able to consider, like, to have the mindset that they could get through something as traumatic as being a surrogate.
hmm,
And you think you're going to be respected by the family. And a lot of times that's not the case. It's very much business.
yeah. When you're no longer needed, you need to be out of the picture.
Right.
Yeah. a lot of the advertisements or, you see like the pregnancy announcements that I always, find it odd that they like chop off the woman's like face, it's like the hands on the belly. It's like, okay, she doesn't, we don't want to personify her. We don't want to give her an identity that people might connect with. But anyway, I'm digressing from your story. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners or our viewers about your experience or about the industry or about surrogacy?
I feel like I was just so naive on all of the medical things that could possibly happen. And I thought none of this stuff would happen to me. And I thought I was doing a good thing. And while I think like a child is definitely a good thing, I wouldn't have done it had I known like all the repercussions of what I know now. And I definitely wouldn't have subjected someone else to it. So I thought, like, okay, I got blood clots. Maybe it just happened to me. Maybe it was just my body reacting. But then when the next surrogate got high blood pressure, I felt so guilty. And I told her, I said, listen, I had blood clots, but I don't think it happens to everybody. Do you still want to do this? I thought I was educating her more or like helping her more by telling her, like, hey, if you really don't want to do this, like, I had this serious problem. And she was like, oh, it probably just happened to you. And I'm like, okay, that's what I think too. And so I put someone else at risk. And the surrogate dad had two or three different surrogates, all with health problems, and it didn't seem to bother him that these women were putting their lives in jeopardy for him to have more children.
Yeah. And it's not just, for listeners, it's not just the surrogate mothers that are carrying high risk pregnancies, but you're also affecting egg donors. And I use that in quotes because they're sellers, egg sellers. They were paid for their eggs likely. And there are
They
health
have all
risks.
kinds of yes.
Right. There are
Mm-hmm.
health risks to egg donors as well. We know this. Um, we don't know all of them because the fertility industry refuses to research and study this population of women. But these are healthy women that are put also on high doses of hormones and other drugs so that eggs can be collected out of their bodies. And this is harmful. We know this can be harmful. So potentially, if he has three different surrogate mothers and probably three different egg donors, maybe not. So we're looking at four, maybe six women all involved in this process that could be harmed. And then we have the child because anytime a woman carries a pregnancy that's high risk, those risks also affect the baby. So when you have preeclampsia, you might have issues with the placenta. The baby might have to be induced and delivered early. There's a whole kinds of things that can go wrong. And everyone's health is at play. And no matter how many regulations you have, you cannot regulate away the health risks. Yeah.
That's so
Well,
true.
Mandy, I won't keep you much longer. I know you are busy, busy mom, busy working lady. But thank you so much for contacting us. Stay in touch. Thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and sharing your story with our listeners.
Thank you too. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, listeners. You can always find us at cbc-network.org and you can reach out to me at callie.fell@cbc-network.org.